This program is brought to you by Emory University.
On March 17, 2014, the Center for Faculty Development and Excellence at Emory University hosted a discussion titled Scholarly Writing in the Digital Milieu. The panelists discussed the challenges and opportunities afforded by the rapidly evolving world of digital scholarship, how scholars can use the web to collaborate with their peers and engage new and wider audiences, and how digital platforms can influence the character of scholarly writing itself. The speakers were Roopika Risam, Assistant Professor of World Literature and English Education at Salem State University, and Adeline Coe, Director of the Digital Humanities Center and Assistant Professor of Literature at Richard Stockton College. In this video, Professor Risam discusses the difficulties of doing digital scholarship in the humanities and how scholars can make the most of its inherently collaborative and public nature.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the difficulties of doing digital humanities scholarship, or digital scholarship more generally in the academies right now. And it's something that's very relevant for literary scholars, but I think also arts and humanities scholars as well. I mean, scientists are more used to collaboration than humanities scholars. So at the moment, we're still in a situation where double-blind peer review is the gold standard for validating scholarly work. Value in scholarship has traditionally flowed monodirectionally from peer review. And in these hierarchies that govern academic hiring and tenure and promotion practices, the single-authored monograph from the distinguished scholarly press remains in that position of prominence. And then among shorter forms, the academic journal provides a really readily legible marker of academic quality. But if you're working in a digital format, if you're working in digital humanities, the conventions that govern the gatekeeping of scholarly work feel really mismatched to the digital milieu. So digital scholarship requires consideration of the factors that distinguish it from print scholarship, and also requires a new approach to validating scholarship that emerges from and respects the specificities of digital work. So rethinking peer review in the age of digital academe really goes beyond, it's more than a question of medium or a question of platform, but it's a question of epistemology. So digital scholarship isn't simply print scholarship that is now digital, but it raises its own questions of genre and gives rise to its own conventions. Do you like the Luddites Speak? Put that up there. That was for everybody. Rethinking, or rather, one of the first interventions for digital platforms in academic work came from e-journals, or born digital journals. And I don't know if you remember when e-journals first started happening, but they received many responses, from skepticism to excitement, concern that the fact that they were born digital would decrease their scholarly merit, as though there was no distinction between writing a blog post and putting it on the internet and an online academic journal that has a review process and has a review board. Yet even though e-journals are born digital, many of them do follow these traditional ways that scholarship is reviewed and vetted. And so they reproduce the hierarchies and values of print knowledge and rely on traditional senses of what academic work looks like. So in a sense, I mean, I think e-journals are really important, but they don't yet sort of solve the problem of what do we do with digital scholarship. Scholarly publishing has responded to the affordances of the digital. We've seen greater interest in open access, a boom in journals using digital platforms to put out the articles ahead of the time lag that we tend to see with born print journals. And we also have new platforms like Scalar, which integrate the scholarship with public commentary. But it's important to remember that digital scholarship is its own animal. It defies the conventions of print scholarship. And I'm going to talk a little bit about three principal differences between digital and print scholarship in the humanities that require a radical revision to how we review and assess scholarly production. and how scholarly work accrues value. And they are that digital scholarship is often collaborative, it is rarely finished, and it is frequently public. So while creation and distribution of print knowledge in the humanities has traditionally been a solitary task, digital scholarship is often collaborative, and that challenges that familiar image we have of the print academic in her hermitage, toiling in obscurity. That's not us, if only. Unfortunately, we have to work together. Greater frequency of collaboration in digital scholarship is a function of the platform. Producing digital scholarship requires us to draw on skills, a range of skills, both the ones that we were trained with and others. I mean, there's sort of a constant influx of new tools and new ways of doing digital scholarship that we have to try and keep up with, essentially. And it also takes the tremendously valuable commodity of time. Because digital scholarship is of questionable value for tenure and promotion, those of us who work in the digital milieu steal time from tenure-worthy projects to advance our work. These challenges are difficult for those of us who have higher teaching loads and fewer institutional resources to support our research. So I'm trying to make a digital humanities center happen at my university, and I think it'll happen, but I'm not going to get web developers. I'm not going to get that kind of money. I'm going to get some release time and a little bit of money to do some smaller scale projects. But I have to find a way to convince them that that is somehow worthy of promoting me and of reappointing me. But despite the efficiency of combining skills and human capital, which collaboration allows us to do, even though it's expected in science and social science to some degree, it raises concern with the humanities, and it raises skepticism, particularly over how to evaluate individual contributions to collaborative projects for tenure and promotion. So I probably won't have to worry too much about that, because we get to, I call our tenure process choose your own adventure, because we're supposed to be excellent in teaching, research, and scholarship, but we can choose where we want to put our energies and write a narrative of how we want to be evaluated and assessed according to that. If I were at a different kind of institution, I would be writing out, a very extensive memo about exactly what pieces I contributed to, and trying to kind of quantify how much, which is so difficult because, if you ever saw Adeline and I work, one editor from a university press had the either fortune or misfortune to see us working in a Google Doc at the same time. It's a very seamless process for us, so if we had to actually try and figure out who did what, we'd be in trouble. That's why I like my job. The question of being finished is another important one, because born print scholarship, we say, is never finished, it is abandoned. And this is true of digital scholarship, it could be abandoned. But digital projects may exist in phases, they may be perpetually in progress, they may never have an acceptable stopping point. The end point for digital scholarship is frequently a moving target, and there's often no single event when you're producing digital scholarship that is the equivalent of, here I am submitting my manuscript for review. So digital projects require a new approach to the linear conventions of scholarly time. So for example, the completion of a phase of a digital project may be an appropriate moment for evaluation, but that really probably won't be the conferral of some kind of mark of scholarly validation like you'd get with your accepted paper. Maybe you would get more information. Maybe you would get feedback on the project, and maybe you would take that feedback and fold it into the next phase. So it works very differently, and it's key to remember that and to not just try and take all of the expectations of board and print scholarship and then just apply them to the digital. Moreover, digital projects are difficult for search committees or tenure and promotion committees to evaluate. They can't compare print scholarship because that single CV line that identifies that a project exists cannot adequately communicate the amount of intellectual labor that's gone into a project, and digital projects often require ongoing sustainability. They at least need a sustainability plan or preservation plan, whereas once you write a book or you write an article, it's presumed that it's finished. It's not an ongoing process. The other issue with digital scholarship is that it's frequently public. Often a public project. Even though more academics are blogging and on social media, scholarship in the humanities still relies on a model of private labor, that hermit that I previously mentioned. The public components of print scholarship are encoded in rituals of the work we do. So invited talks, symposia, or conference panels, and there's even some debate about whether these things are in fact public. On the other hand, digital scholarship, particularly projects that use a web-based infrastructure, they become public early in their development. I mean, there's some amount you can kind of hold back, but if you're using something that's web-based, eventually it's going on the web. This is in part because of the affordances of a web presence for digital work. The orientation of digital humanities towards praxis, and the fact that many tools and platforms are on the web. So I think this is a great thing, personally. I mean, I feel like Adeline and I would not have had our work to get the kind of reach it does without the public nature of the internet. But on the other hand, there are downsides. So if I'm writing my article about post-colonial failure in Burma, which I am, I can hide that away and not tell anybody about it if I want to. I can keep it on my computer. I can delay making it public as long as I want. But if I'm doing my digital scholarship with Adeline, I don't really have the same kind of agency about publicness or privacy with that work. And this differential between private and public and print and digital scholarship, it sort of cleaves to the levels of status and privilege and prestige that each accrues. Print scholarship is often not open access. It generally lives in databases or behind paywalls or in library archives. Its privacy is guaranteed by barriers, and those barriers often accrue capital for the gatekeepers. So JSTOR, it's a lot of money for keeping the journal article you want to get to from being open access. On the other hand, digital scholarship may be relatively more easily available without that mediating force of transactional capital to prevent access. So the monetary barriers to accessing print scholarship gives it a quantifiable financial value, not one that pays the authors, but a value nonetheless. And it's almost like that financial value has accorded it a kind of intellectual value. The publicness of digital scholarship, then, by that token, grants it relatively less value in the academic machine. And I think this reflects some of the ideas that have sort of shaped a kind of suspicion to digital scholarship that we see. Based on these descriptors, digital scholarship threatens to displace a kind of benign academic who doesn't trouble the value and status of print knowledge and reproduces the fetishism of print that undergirds academic disciplines. But the digital scholar, I'm suggesting, can be a radical actor, part of a growing trend in academic discourse, prevalent enough that we need to rethink how academic value is actually produced. There are ways to make the value of digital scholarship legible to tenure and promotion committees and to search committees. So some examples of these would be tracking citations or grants or usage statistics. And actually that gives you information that you don't necessarily get about print scholarships. It's very useful. But you could probably get it. I'm sure JSTOR keeps track, but good luck getting that data out of them. On the DH Commons editorial board, which I'm on, we are working to develop a new journal that will review projects, and we're developing a process that's trying to account for the specificities of digital scholarship. Anvil Academic is a partnership between CLEAR and Knightley, and it's pioneering a platform for digital publishing that would be an indicator of a kind of peer review for digital projects. And efforts continue to define evaluation for digital work. So the MLA, for example, has some guidelines. Adeline was on a great panel at MLA as well about this very topic. So it's a conversation that's ongoing. But perhaps the most important insight to remember when encountering digital scholarship is to attend to the particulars of the digital. These possibilities for collaboration, new approaches to thinking about completeness in scholarship, and the public nature of the work we do, and to not see these as limitations, but to see them as affordances and to account for them as we continue trying to define digital scholarship.
The preceding program is copyrighted by Emory University.